that to get or go from A to B means to go from one place to another. You get from A to B. That's the first expression. The second expression is miss the boat. If you miss the boat, you miss an opportunity. You don't take advantage of an opportunity. Continuing with boats, if you are in the same boat, it means you are in the same situation. What's up, everybody, and hello, welcome once again to the podcast. I'm Lewis, and this is British English Pod, and welcome back for another episode. Thank you for choosing to spend a little bit of time listening to me talking rubbish. But this week we have a specific topic, and it's all related to transport, means of transport, infrastructure, problems we have had with transport in the past. We'll be having a look at a text, a dialogue. We'll be going over some advanced vocabulary, idioms, and I'll be answering the usual conversation questions and discussion questions. So welcome back once again, and I hope you're comfortable. Please sit back, relax, and make yourself comfortable. And before we get into the topic and really get started, well, I thought I'd teach you 5 advanced adjectives because just yesterday I posted a short video across all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and it was with the following title. If you know these 5 advanced adjectives, your English is amazing. So let's find out if your English really is amazing. I've been reviewing these adjectives this morning in class, so I thought, why not share them with everybody? And for my students, it's an opportunity to review and refresh their memory. As always, if you'd like to become a student of mine, there will be a link in the video description so you can join my group classes, all private classes, or you can download my application. So the first advanced adjective is flaky. Flaky. Like cornflakes. You can have cornflakes for breakfast, a bowl of cereal with lots of milk. Cornflakes. But the adjective is flaky. And this describes a person who is a bit unreliable. They're not very trustworthy, but particularly when it comes to organizing to go out and meet with friends, and they will say yes. They will confirm their attendance. But after that, at the last minute, they might send you a message and say, "Oh, Lewis, I'm really sorry, but something's come up. Something's come up, and I cannot hang out with you today." If they do this a lot, then you can describe this person as a really flaky person. I have a friend. His name is Tom. And Tom is the flakiest guy I know. Luckily, I know he's not going to listen to this podcast. But Tom's so flaky. He always says, yeah, we'll meet up next time you come home. Let's go out for a beer. Why don't we, have a pizza together? Or shall we watch some football together? So he'll confirm and say that he's going to do it. And then, when the moment of truth comes, he backs out. He backs out of the plan. He's so flaky. Come on, Tom. Be better. And the second adjective is jaded. And I must admit, I'm quite jaded this week. And jaded means tired. You're not fully yourself. You may be a little bit uninspired or a bit fed up. And I'm not uninspired or fed up, but I am quite tired. I'm quite jaded because I had a busy weekend last weekend. I maybe had a 2-day hangover. So all of that alcohol has taken its toll on me. It's had a negative effect on me. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I was flat out. If you are flat out, it means that you were nonstop, very, very busy. So my schedule, my timetable was chock-a-block. It was chock-a-block, absolutely full. So I've been flat out this week. So as a consequence, I feel jaded. I feel jaded. That's the second adjective. Now, the third adjective is one that you might be familiar with because I think this is the most common one out of this variety and assortment of 5. It is scruffy. Scruffy. If you listened to the latest chit chat with my mum, going over superlative conversation questions, you'll have heard my mum saying that the hotel where my mum and dad stayed on their honeymoon was really scruffy. It means messy, untidy, run down even. And because I'm a bit jaded and I've been so busy, today you might look at me and think, Lewis, are you all right? You look a little bit scruffy. And I agree. I look a little bit scruffy. You could say that I've deliberately made myself look scruffy so that it would be more memorable for you to actually really memorize this adjective. But scruffy, as I said, is messy, untidy. If you're looking at me as I'm speaking, you will notice that I've got a bit of a beard. I've got bed head as well. You know, my hair looks like I've just got out of bed and it's 2:00 because I've even got this little spike. You know, when you sleep very heavily and you're sleeping on your side, maybe, so your pillow might just like get in the way of part of your hair, usually at the back, and it means that a few hairs will like stick out and they'll look like a little spike. So you can tell that I haven't had a shower yet today. I'm going to go for a run after I record this podcast. But right now, I look really scruffy. After I have a run, I promise, I'm going to have a shave, I'm going to have a shower, and I'm going to be looking tip-top. I'm going to be looking tip-top, you know? I'm going to be looking back to my best. I hope so. So that's the third adjective. Now, the fourth adjective is fickle. Fickle. If a person is fickle, it means that they change their opinion, their views, their feelings very quickly. Maybe because somebody is telling them to, perhaps because of peer pressure, or maybe because they're being bribed. But the most common contexts that I'm familiar with is about supporting ideas or teams. The example I gave on my short video was my friend used to be a Manchester United fan when he was growing up, and they were very successful. They won all of the trophies. They had all of these great players. But nowadays, he supports Manchester City. So he went from supporting one team in Manchester to support the now richer and more successful team in Manchester. He's so fickle, isn't he? He's so disloyal. He changes his views so easily, so quickly. Such a fickle guy. So that's the fourth adjective. And the final one is touchy. Touchy. A touchy person could be someone who is physically very touchy-feely, you know, kissing, hugging, getting very close to you. But it could also be someone who's easily offended, quite sensitive, and quite delicate. I have said on this podcast before that I've got quite thick skin. I'm not very easily offended. But if I didn't have thick skin, you could say that I'm quite touchy. If someone says, Lewis, this podcast's rubbish. It's rubbish. And I start crying and bawling my eyes out, then I'd be a bit touchy about it. So a touchy can be for a person, but it can also be for a thing. Politics is a touchy subject. People usually advise not bringing up this topic at dinner with your family or friends because it can be a little bit touchy, a bit delicate, a bit sensitive. So there we go. There are the 5 advanced adjectives that I quizzed people on just yesterday. So I'm curious. Let me know in the comments, how many of these adjectives were you familiar with and which ones were you familiar with? I reckon you might have already heard scruffy. Scruffy is probably the most common one. And perhaps touchy. Touchy, remember, is delicate, sensitive, and scruffy is messy. Fickle, changing your opinions. Flaky, you are unreliable. And the last one, what was the last one? Jaded. If you're jaded, you're a little bit tired and fed up. But that's enough for that, where that comes from. And let's keep going. Let's keep moving forward. And now let's have a chat about the topic. It is transport, as I mentioned. And my first question to you is the following one. It is, what preposition do we use in English when it comes to transport and public transport? Is it in or is it on? On a plane or in a plane? On a bus or in a bus? On a car or in a car? Which one should we use? Well, let's test it out. And in general, a piece of advice is that if the means of transport has an aisle, in other words, a corridor in the middle, so you can get up, stand up, and move around, then you use on. If, on the other hand, the means of transport doesn't have an aisle, it doesn't have a corridor, you can't stand up and move around, then you use in. And other than that, we would also use on if you are physically on top of something, like you are riding it. So, for example, the train. Are you in a train or on a train? Of course, you are on the train. A plane. Are you on a plane or in a plane? You guessed it. You are on a plane. You can stand up. What about a taxi? Are you in a taxi or on a taxi? You are in a taxi. You can't stand up and move around. There's no aisle in the middle. So you are in a taxi. From there, a helicopter. Are you in or on a helicopter? Once again, can you stand up? Not really. No, there's no aisle. Therefore, you would be in a helicopter. A boat. Are you in a boat or on a boat? Well, there are some exceptions here, but 9 times out of 10, boats are a bit bigger and you can stand up and you can move around. Therefore, I would advise you to use on a boat. There are maybe some small boats where you might use in, but generally speaking, you are on a boat. Continuing, what about a bus? In a bus or on a bus? Of course, you are on a bus. Then we have bicycle. Are you on a bicycle or in a bicycle? Well, here, are you riding it? Yes, you are riding a bike. So, you are on a bicycle. Next, we have foot. In other words, walking. Are you in foot or on foot? This one doesn't really follow any rules. It's kind of like an exception. But we use on. I went there on foot. You have to go there on foot. You have to walk there. And then the last two, a motorbike. Are you in or on a motorbike? You are, well, on a motorbike. Because once again, you are riding it. You're on top of it physically. And then, last but not least, a tram. Are you in a tram or on a tram? You are on a tram. Because once again, it has an aisle so you can get up, stand up, and wander around. So, how was that? Is it clear? Do you reckon you have mastered this little bit of grammar now? I hope so. Let's find out. And apart from that, now I'd like to answer some random conversation questions related to the topic. So I'm not going to share my screen for it. You can just listen to me and have a think about your own answers at the same time. The first question is public transport in your country reliable and affordable? Is public transport in your country reliable and affordable? Now, despite not living in the United Kingdom, I'm going to speak about the UK. And I would say yes. Generally speaking, public transport, buses, trams, trains, are quite reliable and they're more or less affordable. But that part, we'll get onto later. Because I'd say most of the time, trains are on time. They're not usually late, and if they are late, they would be late by 5 minutes or similar. And for me, that doesn't count as being late. If it's 5 minutes late, what's the big deal? It doesn't matter. It's not going to make a big impact on your routine or your life. So usually, it's reliable, and services are rarely cancelled. So that's definitely a positive. And the second part of the question was, is public transport affordable in your country? Now here, that depends. Because, for example, there are some videos online or articles of people showing that they are able to live in different cities around Europe, pay their bills there, and work remotely some days, and then fly from, let's say, Barcelona to London once per week, and it will cost them less than it would if they were getting the train from Manchester to London. Which doesn't make any sense. Of course, I always appreciate it when airlines reduce their fees and you can fly for a very, very cheap price. But planes obviously pollute a lot more than trains. Trains are a green means of transport. So it should be a lot cheaper to get a train than to get a plane. But that's not the way it is. It's a shame. But hey, that shows you that sometimes public transport in the UK is unaffordable. It should be cheaper. And for example, there's a country in Europe, a small country, and quite a rich country, and it is Luxembourg. And Luxembourg, the average GDP is very high. So people have a lot of money, the average salary is very high. But one positive that the local government have done there is they've made all public transport completely free. So whenever you get on a bus a plane no. Whenever you get on a bus or a train or a tram around Luxembourg City, you don't have to get your wallet out. You don't have to give any change or swipe your card. It's free. And I think every big city in the world should aspire to do this. If people are paying high taxes, then we should be able to see the advantages of the money we are paying. So I am campaigning for free public transport. It would be a positive for the environment and it would, well, improve the infrastructure so everybody could move around and keep the local economy going. That's what I think. Now, number 2. Should governments prioritize public transport over road expansion? Should governments prioritize public transport over road expansion? Absolutely yes. 100% yes. And let's make a comparison between Europe and America. And I don't mean just the United States. I mean all across the Americas. In Europe and also in Japan, Korea, China, train networks and railroads are all over the place. So it's very simple and easy to travel around cities and regions by train, which means that, again, it is greener, more environmentally friendly, and it works out to be cheaper. But then if you compare this with the United States, the railroad network is awful. It's terrible for the so-called first world. You can hardly get from Los Angeles to San Francisco by train. It's complicated to go from Chicago to Boston by train. But in Europe, it's easy peasy to go from, I don't know, Paris to Amsterdam, Paris to London, Paris to Berlin. So I think the sign of a developed country is having a very well-developed public transport network. So people don't have to depend on driving everywhere and having these big motorways and roads that are absolutely full of cars, full of traffic. So yes, I do think that governments should definitely prioritize public transport over road expansion. That's the second question. Moving on to the third question. Are electric vehicles the real solution to environmental problems? Are electric vehicles the real solution to environmental problems? Now, this is where I'm a little bit more torn, meaning I'm on the fence. I can't make up my mind which is better. I have never driven an electric vehicle. I don't drive a lot, to be honest, in general, because I don't need to, and I don't particularly enjoy it either. But I think maybe a decade ago, everybody was saying that electric vehicles were the future and that they were much more environmentally friendly. And while I think that is still the case, if you're comparing electric vehicles with petrol or diesel vehicles, electric vehicles also use up a lot of electricity and a lot of rare earths, rare minerals, a lot of lithium, for example, for these batteries. And these batteries, once they've been used, I don't know if they can be recycled. So I think electric cars are positive and better than traditional cars, but at the same time, it would be better just to focus on fewer vehicles in general. That way, there is less waste. Now, how about number 4 and 5? I'm going to combine them together. Number 4 is, would you give up your car if infrastructure improved? would you give up your car if infrastructure improved? And is remote work reducing traffic in your area? Is remote work reducing traffic in your area? So as I've just mentioned, I don't drive. I don't have a car where I live here in Brussels. And I work remotely, as you have seen, and I'm sure you have heard me saying before. So I think that traffic has been improved in many cities because fewer people need to go to the office. Therefore, fewer people need to drive. So yes, I think remote work is a positive in terms of reducing traffic. And I know some people can be motorheads, meaning they really like cars. But I believe that if it is easier, cheaper, more convenient, and less stressful if you're getting the train compared to the car, 9 out of 10 people would opt for giving up their car. So I believe this question is more focused on people in the United States who depend on their cars a lot more. But I'm sure people in the US as well, if the infrastructure was fully developed with lots and lots of train and tram connections, then so many people, hundreds, thousands, millions of people would give up their car if infrastructure improved. That's what I'd say. What do you think? Let me know in the comments what your opinions are related to these things. Do you like driving? Are you a fan of the public transport in your country? Are electric vehicles the way forward? Or should we focus more on improving the infrastructure so more people can travel using public transport? All right, now let's keep going. But from there, what we're going to do is read an article, or at least I'm going to read an article, and I'd like you to just listen, and then I'll review some of the advanced words and phrases. Are you ready? Let's get started. Modern transport systems are under increasing pressure. Rapid urbanization, population growth, and rising car ownership have pushed infrastructure to its limits. In many cities, commuters face daily gridlock, overcrowded trains, and unreliable bus services. What should be a straightforward way to get from A to B often turns into a stressful and time-consuming ordeal. One of the core issues is outdated infrastructure. Rail networks in particular are often running behind capacity, with aging equipment and frequent delays. Meanwhile, road expansion projects rarely solve congestion in the long term. They simply encourage more drivers to use their cars. As a result, emissions rise and city centres become more polluted. Improvement requires a long-term, integrated strategy. First and foremost, governments need to invest heavily in reliable, affordable public transport. Frequent services, modern carriages, and dedicated bus lanes can significantly reduce commuting times. When public transport is efficient and reasonably priced, people are far more willing to leave their cars at home. In addition, cities must prioritize sustainable alternatives. Expanding safe cycling infrastructure and pedestrian-friendly zones can dramatically cut traffic levels. However, this requires proper urban planning rather than short-term political fixes. Technology also has a role to play. Smart traffic management systems, real-time traffic updates, and contactless payment options can streamline the user experience. Remote and hybrid working policies may further ease peak hour pressure. Ultimately, improving transport systems is not just about mobility. It is about quality of life, economic productivity, and environmental responsibility. Without decisive action, many cities risk grinding to a halt. Okay, there we have it. That is the text, the piece of information talking all about the problems and opportunities with modern transport systems, about how they are under pressure. They are struggling with more and more people needing to go from A to B, needing to travel from one place to another. As promised, now let's have a look at some advanced words and phrases, starting with gridlock. Gridlock is traffic, essentially, traffic jams. Traffic jams that do not move at all. So commuters face daily gridlock, meaning people who go from home to work, get stuck in traffic. And they're stuck for a long, long time. Next, we had to go or get from A to B, which means to go from one place to another. I don't need a fancy car. I just want to go from A to B. We also had an ordeal. An ordeal is basically a hassle, a mess, a stressful situation. So going from A to B can turn into a stressful and time-consuming ordeal. Situation, basically. As we continue, we also have some other advanced words and phrases. For example, we could look at this nice connector, first and foremost. And first and foremost means firstly and most importantly. After that, we also have pedestrian. A pedestrian is someone who is walking, a citizen who is walking. So a pedestrian-friendly zone would be an area that is cut off to traffic. And then, towards the end, we could also look at phrases such as peak hour pressure. And a peak hour is a rush hour at 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning when traffic is very high. You have daily gridlock. And last but not least, we have grinding to a halt. If a city grinds to a halt, it means that it slowly creaks to stop. If you have a train on the tracks and it tries to brake and it's going really, really fast, it's not going to stop just like that with the click of your fingers. It's going to grind to a halt. It's going to make a noise, which is like before it actually stops. It grinds to a halt. So there we go. That was the text. I hope you liked it. And if you like that I read out texts and dialogues, also let me know. I like to know as much feedback as possible. So whenever you have feedback, I appreciate it. Absolutely appreciate it. But from there, I'd like to give you a little recommendation of something that I think is quite interesting to watch if you are a motorhead. And as I said, a motorhead is someone who likes driving. So, if you are a motorhead, I wholeheartedly recommend watching Top Gear. And I remember that I used to watch Top Gear every Sunday with my dad growing up, and you had these three relatively famous, funny, charismatic hosts. You had Jeremy Clarkson, who nowadays has a really enjoyable and amusing documentary series on Amazon Prime, which is called Clarkson's Farm. Check it out if you have Amazon Prime. But he came and rose to fame. He became famous through Top Gear, which was with Jeremy Clarkson, what was his name? James May and Richard Hammond. These were the three hosts. And they would drive new cars, old cars. They'd travel around the world doing crazy, funny challenges where they would have to go from A to B, and they would push these cars to their limits. And these are three people who are definitely motorheads. They love driving. But yeah, I used to watch it every Sunday with my dad. And while not being a fanatic about cars, I thoroughly enjoyed watching every episode of Top Gear. It's a good laugh. So yeah, are you a fan of Top Gear or not? I reckon there are a few people who definitely like Top Gear because I think it became quite famous around the world, not only in the UK. But from there, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. My next question is cycling. Is cycling realistic in large cities? And should we focus more of our energy in making cities more cycling friendly? So it's easier and safer for cyclists to cycle around the city so we can prioritize them instead of drivers. I would say that cycling should be the future. I know it's the past as well, but it should also be the future. My dad is obsessed with cycling. He goes on his bike practically every day. And cycling is healthy, environmentally friendly. Being healthy, it keeps you in shape. And it takes up less of our roads, streets. You can fit, 10, 15 different cyclists in the same space as a big car. So if more people cycled, then we could make our cities look, smell, and feel healthier, cleaner, and at the same time, pedestrians, would be safer and healthier. But of course, big cities, they do have to balance this out because we can't make cities completely pedestrianized. You need to have to drive some places, or it just becomes unfeasible, impossible to live there. But we need to meet in the middle, in my opinion. We should promote lots of biking lanes, lots of cycling lanes, so people can cycle around the city. But at the same time, you need to be able to allow people to use cars. But yeah, personally, I don't cycle that much. I probably should do it a lot more, but I love walking. I'm a walker, a white walker. If you get the reference, give yourself a tap on the back. So yeah, cycling, I am a big fan of. And what else? Commuting. What is your commute like? We saw the word commuters from the text, and a commuter is someone who needs to travel from home to work and back. Many people commute by car. Some people commute by bus. Other people commute by the tube, the underground, something that I haven't really mentioned. And in my case, well, I commute by going from my bed to this corner or my sofa. So my commute, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I walk 10 steps, make myself a coffee, and I'm ready to go. So my commute is fantastic. But other commuting experiences that I've had in the past have been, well, I commuted from my house to a school when I was living in Australia. And I used to cycle, in fact, just along the river. So it was a really nice commute. And other than that, in Seville, when I lived there, I used to commute on foot as well. I would walk. So I've never really had any nightmarish commuter experiences. And I don't think I would allow myself. I wouldn't let this happen. I have some friends here in Brussels who live in the city centre of Brussels, but then they work in NATO. And the headquarters of NATO is just next to another city in Belgium, and it's called Mons. Mons. And these people who work for NATO with a good salary, very good conditions, a very important job at the moment for the time of the world we live in with so much conflict. But their commute is awful because they have to drive for an hour, maybe an hour and a half every day in the morning, and then another hour or hour and a half in the afternoon or evening. So in total, their daily commute is like 3 hours. Ugh, it's horrible. I couldn't hack it. I couldn't handle it unless they were going to make me a millionaire, which they might have a good salary, but they're not going to become a millionaire. So it's not worth it, if you ask me. All right, now let's keep going. And we've already had a text, but now I'm going to read to you a short dialogue. And then we'll finish off with some expressions. Because, yeah, today I feel like I'm beating around the bush. I'm going off topic. You can tell that I'm a bit jaded after a busy week, right? So, here is the dialogue, and it is between two people, Liam and Sophie, chatting about transport. Ready? Let's go. How are you getting around these days? Still commuting by car? I ditched the car months ago. The traffic was unbearable. Absolute gridlock every morning. I was spending half my life stuck in congestion. Tell me about it. The infrastructure here just isn't fit for purpose. They keep talking about upgrading the rail network, but nothing ever materializes. Exactly. I've started cycling to work instead. It's quicker, cheaper, and I don't have to rely on public transport running on a shoestring budget. Fair play. I tried that, but the cycle lanes are patchy at best. You're taking your life into your own hands on some of those roads. True. Urban planning hasn't caught up with reality. The city keeps expanding, but the transport links are lagging behind. And don't get me started on the buses. They're always delayed or packed like sardines. That's why more people are working remotely. If the commute's a nightmare, you'd rather log in from home. Ideally, we'd have a reliable, affordable system that actually reduces our carbon footprint. One can dream. Until then, we're all just trying to get from A to B without losing our sanity. So there we have the dialogue. And just recapping a couple of words from the dialogue. To ditch is to give up or get rid of, to stop using. I ditched my car months ago. I stopped using it months ago. If you are running on a shoestring budget, you're running on a very, very low budget. I'm running on a shoestring budget, a low budget. If transport is lagging behind, it is being very, very slow, and it is staying behind you. in a slow way. If a bus is packed like sardines, it is absolutely chock-a-block. It's completely packed, full of people. And then, recapping the expression from earlier, if you get or go from A to B, you go from one place to the next. Good. And that's how we're going to continue, because I've mentioned this expression a couple of times. And if you can see my screen right now, you will be able to see 10 English expressions, English idioms related to transport on the left, with their synonyms in a scrambled order on the right. The first being get from A to B. So you know by now that to get or go from A to B means to go from one place to another. You get from A to B. That's the first expression. The second expression is miss the boat. If you miss the boat, you miss an opportunity. You don't take advantage of an opportunity. Continuing with boats, if you are in the same boat, it means you are in the same situation. For many people, if you live in a city, we're all in the same boat, you know? We have the same problems, the same difficulties. So in the same boat, in the same situation. The fourth idiom is jump on the bandwagon. If you jump on the bandwagon, you are following a trend, joining a trend. You're just doing what everybody else is doing. So some of my friends bought themselves their own electric scooter. So I thought, ooh, now I want an electric scooter. So I jumped on the bandwagon and I did the same thing. The fifth idiom is to take a back seat, which kind of has two different contexts. One could be if something takes a back seat, it becomes less important. And if you take a back seat, you decide to become less involved. You're not driving anymore. You're taking a back seat. So it is to become less important or less active. The sixth idiom is to be at a crossroads. If you are at a crossroads, you're not sure which direction to go in. You know, you have right, left, forward, backwards. You're at a crossroads, meaning that you're facing a difficult choice, a difficult dilemma. I'm at a crossroads. I don't know how to proceed. The seventh idiom is to go off the rails, which comes from trains. If a train goes off the rails, of course, it crashes. There could be a fatal accident, like there was in Spain just a few months ago, which was absolutely traumatic and horrible. Hopefully, it never happens again. But a person could also go off the rails. Maybe if they start hanging out with the wrong crowd, and they could be easily manipulated or affected by other people. So to go off the rails is to lose control or lose your sense in life. The eighth idiom is hit the road. I'm sure you're familiar with the song. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. What'd you say? Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Sorry about that. I got a little bit carried away. I got a bit excited with the song. It's a very catchy song, let's admit it. But hit the road is a way of saying leave. Let's hit the road. And of course it comes from driving. if you've just stopped and then you need to continue or start your journey, you hit the road. You start driving. Now, the ninth idiom is on the right track. I use this a lot in class to tell students that they're going in a correct direction. They're doing what they should be doing. They're studying a lot, so I tell them, keep going, you're improving. You're on the right track. You're going in the right direction, the correct direction. And last but not least, number 10 is drive someone up the wall. It means to drive someone crazy. So if you drive someone up the wall, you make them go crazy. They lose their mind. You drive them up the wall. Good. How was that? Tell me. Good, difficult, easy peasy? Hopefully it wasn't too bad. And hopefully you can try to memorize some of these idioms, all of them related to transport. Now, to finish, let's use a few of them in conversation. I've got some conversation questions that I'm going to ask myself and answer. For example, do you like to hit the road early when you travel? Yes, I love to hit the road early when I travel because if I know I'm going to travel, I want to get ahead and I want to leave at the crack of dawn to try to reach my destination as quickly as possible in order to make the most of where I'm going to be. So yeah, I like to hit the road early when I travel. Next question. Do you think you're on the right track with your career? Interesting. I'd say yes. On the whole, I am on the right track with my career. I'm going in the right direction with my career. I'm in charge of making decisions. And so far, so good. Everything is going relatively well. Next question. Have you ever felt like you missed the boat on an opportunity? Yes, I definitely feel like I missed the boat on an opportunity by not starting this podcast and my social media career sooner. I missed a boat because I should have started 10 years ago, ages ago, but unfortunately, I didn't. So, I missed the boat. The fourth question. What everyday thing drives you up the wall? What everyday thing drives you up the wall? Something that drives me up the wall is something that I think I've actually mentioned and my mum mentioned on a recent conversation. And it is when people are speaking whilst they're eating. If people are talking with their mouth full, oh, it's disgusting, I think. It drives me up the wall. First, eat, chew, finish what you're eating. And then tell me what you want to tell me. There's no rush. Stop driving me up the wall. And let's do one more. A final question before we wrap it up. And it is, have you ever been at a crossroads in your life? Have you ever been at a crossroads in your life? Ooh, lovely question. Yes, I think I have been at a crossroads in my life before. And it was when I was only 17, 18, because I didn't know what to do at university. I didn't know what to study at uni. So I was kind of at a crossroads. I was thinking, should I do something related to sport or should I do something related to languages and education? But in the end, I decided, well, I'm going to go for languages. And I think I made the right choice. Hopefully you agree that I made the right choice, or I wouldn't be here today talking to you about transport. And that's it. let's finish because I'm jaded. I'm shattered. I'm knackered. And it's sunny, so I'm going to go outside for a quick run and walk. And then in a couple of hours, I'm actually flying back to England. So, knowing that I'm speaking about transport and I'm actually gonna walk, then I'm gonna get the tram and I'm gonna get on a coach and I'm gonna fly. And then I'm gonna get picked up by my dad when I get back to England. I'm gonna be taking all sorts of means of transports in the next 6 to 8 hours. So, wish me luck. By the time you listen to this, I will have already come back to Brussels. But hey, that doesn't matter. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you liked it. Please leave a like if so. And yeah, follow for more. Thanks, guys. Bye.